How can the richest man be the poorest of all? Arthur had everything money could buy: mansions, yachts, rare artifacts. But in his lonely nights in Beverly Hills, he discovered the cruelest truth. His marble walls echoed only the sound of an empty heart. He was a prisoner of his own fortune, a collector of everything except the one thing that matters: a genuine connection. Until a storm raged over Los Angeles and brought with it a gift no check could buy. Abandoned on his gate, soaked and shivering, was Leo, a deaf and mute orphan who carried on his back not just a battered backpack, but the weight of a world that had always ignored him. His eyes, however, held a secret, a glimpse of a hope that refused to die. This is the story of how the man who had everything learned from the child who had nothing. It's a journey of transformation and redemption, where the courage of a broken heart confronted the prejudice of a noisy world. Prepare to witness a silent miracle, a bond forged in adversity that will prove that sometimes the sweetest justice is finding your place in the world, and that true love doesn't need words to be heard. Your faith in humanity is about to be restored. Arthur lived secluded in his Beverly Hills mansion, a marble palace where the corridors echoed only with the sound of his own footsteps. Its walls housed a fortune in rare artifacts, each piece a desperate attempt to fill a void that not all the money in the world could cover. He collected objects of unquestionable beauty, but his life was the ugliest thing he knew. His days were a perfect choreography of video meetings and solitary dinners, where the clinking of silver cutlery was the only sound that broke the silence. He had built an empire with his own hands, but he had no one to share the throne with. At night, he wandered the corridors like a ghost in his own castle, pretending that solitude was a choice, not a sentence. Fate had given him everything except what truly mattered. He was the richest man in the room, but always the poorest in genuine connections, and not even his army of advisors could protect him from the truth that stared him in the gold-plated mirror every morning. The storm lashed Los Angeles with rare fury, and Arthur watched the raindrops trickle down the soundproof window of his study. That's when an erratic movement at the electronic gate caught his attention. Against all odds, a small, huddled figure clung to the metal bars, abandoned to the fury of the elements. Something about that helpless silhouette made his icy heart crack. Without thinking, Arthur ran through the rain, his Italian shoes soaking up the grass. As he approached, he saw it was a boy, no more than 6 or 7 years old, trembling uncontrollably. The boy's deep brown eyes met Arthur's, and in them he saw not fear, but a resignation so profound it hurt more than any blow. It was Leo. He carried the feather-light child inside, wrapped him in a cashmere blanket, and called his personal physician. While he waited, Arthur watched the sleeping boy on the sofa, his little fish rising and falling erratically. For the first time in years, someone real was breathing within those walls, and that simple act seemed like a miracle. The following morning brought the cold light of reality. Leo was deaf and mute, abandoned by a system that had no place for him. Arthur, accustomed to solving problems with checks, tried to enroll him in the best specialized school in San Francisco. But the principal, with a coldness that surpassed his own, looked at Leo and then at Arthur, questioning whether a single man with no experience with special needs children could truly offer what was needed. That word, special, echoed in Arthur's mind like an insult. He saw the boy reduced to a diagnosis, a problem to be managed. Leo, sensing the tension, shrank behind Arthur's leg, his eyes wide with a fear that Arthur recognized. It was the same fear he saw in the mirror every day, the fear of not being enough, of not belonging. At that moment, the conflict was no longer about finding a place for Leo, but about Arthur finding the courage to be that place. His fortune was irrelevant, his power a joke. The real obstacle was himself, his ingrained fear of failing, of connecting, of loving, and perhaps losing. He had to decide whether he would be just another person who abandoned Leo, or whether he would be the exception who would change his destiny forever. A week after the failed attempt at school, Leo woke up feverish, his small body trembling uncontrollably. The private doctor diagnosed severe pneumonia, aggravated by the trauma of his abandonment. In the hospital, under the harsh white light of the room, Arthur held Leo's tiny, warm hand, watching the machine monitor each labored breath. It was then that the boy, in a state of delirium, did something that broke Arthur in two. His little fingers formed a hesitant sign, a basic "I love you" that a nurse had gently taught him days before. That was the final straw. Arthur, the unwavering tycoon, collapsed in silent tears beside the bed. He realized, with piercing clarity, that all his millions couldn't buy a single healthy breath for that child. His world of business and acquisitions crumbled, revealing itself to be a monumental farce. The only thing that mattered was the fragile bond between his hand and that of the boy who, even in his pure suffering, still managed to offer love. He whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion, promises that echoed through the barren hospital corridors. He promised that if Leo got better, he would change, he would learn, he would stay. In that hospital room, the man who controlled an empire surrendered completely, accepting that his greatest transformation would not be in business, but in his own character. Fate had given him a second chance, and he wouldn't waste it. In the months that followed, the Beverly Hills mansion witnessed a silent revolution. The expensive artifacts were gradually replaced by colorful finger drawings, and the sound of Arthur's piano filled the hallways. He had discovered that, although Leo couldn't hear the notes, he could feel their vibration through the piano and the floor. Music became his secret language, a bridge where words failed. Arthur, the collector of objects, had become a cultivator of moments. Arthur's redemption wasn't just about raising Leo, but about rediscovering himself. He used his vast influence and wealth to establish a foundation for deaf children, channeling his long-held desire for legacy into something that truly mattered. He faced resistance from his family, who saw his newfound passion as a whim and chose Leo without hesitation, proving that true love is the only inheritance worth fighting for. Now, when Arthur looks in the mirror, he no longer sees an empty man. He sees a father. He sees the very image of overcoming. Leo, flourishing in an environment of pure acceptance, taught him that true justice is not found in the courts, but in giving every soul a chance to shine. His journey proved that the greatest miracle is not accumulating wealth, but finding out hope in the most unexpected places, and that compassion is the only universal language that can restore faith in humanity. Arthur discovered a new way of seeing the world, a lesson in hopes taught without a single word. He began to notice things that were previously invisible to his hurried eyes. The intricate web of a spider caught in the morning dew, the joyful dance of falling leaves in autumn, the pure happiness etched on Leo's face as he felt the warmth of the sun on his cheeks. Wealth, he realized, wasn't in his coffers, but in these small, everyday miracles. They developed simple rituals that became the foundation of their days. Every morning, Arthur would take Leo to the garden, and together they would listen to the birds, gently placing their hands on the tree trunks to feel the vibration of their songs. In the afternoon, Arthur would meticulously learn and practice sign language, his initially clumsy fingers slowly forming words of affection that made Leo's eyes shine with intense pride. The mansion, once a museum of solitude, now pulsed with a new and authentic life. The transformation was palpable. The silence was no longer a void to be filled, but a space of profound connection. Arthur realized that Leo didn't need to be fixed. It was the world around him, with its barriers and prejudices, that needed a revolution of compassion, and he was willing to lead it. Determined to give Leo a normal life, Arthur scheduled a visit to Oak Ridge Academy, a private school in San Diego renowned for its resources. He dressed Leo in impeccable attire and rehearsed a polite greeting with him in sign language. However, upon being greeted by the principal, a woman with an icy smile, the atmosphere instantly changed. Her eyes scanned Leo not as a child, but as a logistical problem, a special case that would divert their precious resources. The headmistress, in a soft but condescending voice, explained to Arthur that, unfortunately, her faculty wasn't equipped to handle such specific needs. She suggested, without even looking directly at Leo, that a specialized institution would be a more suitable environment. The word institution echoed in the ornate hall like a blow, and Arthur felt Leo's hand tighten in his, a subtle tremor of rejection that he understood perfectly. Without saying a word, Arthur knelt down to the boy's level. He gently took Leo's hand and, in front of the surprised headmistress, helped him perform that same rehearsed greeting, a nice to meet you in sign language. It was a silent act of courage and dignity. They left the school hand in hand, the woman's rejection becoming the fuel for the justice Arthur now knew he needed to seek. That night, in the silent darkness of his room, Arthur's demons whispered louder. He watched Leo sleep, his serene face a stark contrast to the storm of uncertainties in his chest. "Who do I think I am?" the inner voice tormented him. A man who buys companies, not one who raises children. I'm going to ruin everything. I'm going to hurt him with my cold demeanor, with my baggage, with my inability to be normal. He found himself replicating the patterns of his own absent father, a ghost he had sworn never to become. The fear was no longer about logistics or comfort. It was about profound emotional vulnerability. Caring for Leo meant giving another person the power to destroy him, and that was more terrifying territory than any billion-dollar negotiation he had ever faced. He almost picked up the phone to call his assistant and begin the process of finding a truly suitable place. His fingers hovered over the screen, but then a small sigh from the bed made him hesitate. Leo turned, and a peaceful smile crossed his face, as if he were having a happy dream. That simple sign of peace was a beacon in Arthur's darkness, a glimpse that perhaps, just perhaps, his presence was already a comfort and not a threat. The fever returned with a vengeance a few weeks later, more ferocious than before. Leo began convulsing on the living room floor, his small body shaking uncontrollably while Arthur, in a panic, held his head and screamed for help. The ambulance seemed to take forever to arrive, and every second was an agony of helplessness. At the hospital, the doctor spoke of serious complications and risk of septicemia, and Arthur felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. He was forced to wait outside the ICU, a powerful man reduced to a helpless spectator, his empty hands trembling. Each minute felt like an eternity of self-recrimination. He had failed. His wealth, his influence, nothing mattered in the face of the possibility of losing that boy. The impersonal white walls of the hospital corridor witnessed his final downfall, the tycoon's facade crumbling completely. When they finally allowed him in, he approached the bed surrounded by wires. Leo looked so small and fragile, and then Arthur knelt, his tears soaking the sterile sheet. "Please stay," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I love you. I truly love you." There was no more doubt, no more fear. It was the purest, rawest truth he had ever spoken in his entire life. He had faced the abyss, and within it, found the overcoming of his greatest fear, to love unconditionally. During Leo's convalescence, Arthur tried everything to comfort him. One day, almost by accident, he sat down at the white grand piano in the music room, a piece that was more of an ornament than an instrument. He began to play a simple, soft melody of a song his grandmother had taught him in childhood. Leo, who was lying on the sofa, felt the vibrations in the wooden floor and crawled closer, placing his little hand on the side of the instrument. His eyes widened in pure astonishment. He felt the music, not with his ears, but with his whole body. It was a physical sensation of connection that words could never provide. Arthur, noticing the reaction, began to play harder, creating rhythmic patterns that made the ground tremble. He saw Leo laugh, a silent and contagious laugh, and his own heart filled with a joy he didn't even know was possible. From that day on, the piano became their altar. Arthur would play, and Leo would respond by clapping to the rhythm or dancing, feeling the music through the vibrations. It was a miracle of communication discovered not in manuals or expensive therapies, but in pure intuition and compassion. They had built a bridge over the abyss of silence, and that bridge was made of chords and vibration. It was the hospital's music therapist, a woman named Clara with kind eyes and calm hands, who saw the seed of what was blossoming between Arthur and Leo. She went to the mansion not as a professional, but as a facilitator. "You're already doing the most important work, Arthur," she told him, watching him play for Leo. "Now, let's just refine the language." Clara introduced Arthur to American Sign Language, not as a daunting task, but as a key to a new world. She showed him that each sign was like a small sculpture in the air, an art form that he and Leo could create together. Arthur, the most dedicated student of her life, studied flashcards at night, his fingers, once nimble only on computer keyboards, now bending into the shapes of family, love, and safe. She also helped Arthur unearth his own traumas, showing him that his wall of ice wasn't a fortress, but a prison. Through Clara, Arthur understood that his healing journey and Leo's were intrinsically linked. She was the professional hope, the guide who confirmed he was on the right path, offering not only techniques but validation for his deepest paternal instincts. Arthur's old meeting table, made of polished ebony, was now covered in papers, but these weren't merger contracts. They were outlines for a foundation, plans for a community center for deaf children. His long-standing passion for collecting fine things had transformed into a fierce desire to create opportunities. He used his influence not to impress other tycoons, but to raise funds and awareness, his personal story becoming his most powerful tool. He attended a charity gala dinner in New York, an event he used to frequent to close deals. This time, he brought Leo, and on stage, under the spotlights, he told his story, not about the successful businessman, but about the lonely man who was saved by a child. He spoke about social justice, about inclusion, and when Leo joined him and signaled "thank you" to the audience, there were not only applause, but tears. Arthur had found his truest legacy. It wasn't in his corporate empire, but in the smile of a child who now felt seen and understood. He realized that redemption isn't about erasing the past, but about using your history and resources to build a better future. He had transformed from a collector of objects into an architect of possibilities, and this new purpose was infinitely more rewarding. News of Arthur's new life reached his family in old New England as an unacceptable scandal. His sister Eleanor, the embodiment of tradition, appeared at their mansion unannounced. Her eyes swept across the room, now filled with toys, with the same revulsion one looks at a vandalized museum. "Arthur, this is a farce," she said, her voice a cold cut. "You can't just adopt a problem to fill the void. The family has a reputation." She didn't see Leo as a child, but as a stain on the family legacy, a distraction from serious business. She argued that Arthur was acting on emotion, an unforgivable weakness in her world. She tried to appeal to the Arthur she knew, the man of steel who put the empire first, offering discreet and expensive solutions involving specialized boarding schools far away. Arthur listened, standing before the fireplace, and for the first time, his sister's fury did not intimidate him. He saw the fear behind her disdain, the fear of change, of what is different. When she finished, he simply signaled to Leo, who watched from afar with apprehensive eyes, "It's all right." That small act of reassurance was his final answer, the justice he now fought for began within his own home. Eleanor didn't give up. She brought the family will, a menacing document containing a clause. The majority inheritance and control of the company were contingent upon maintaining the conduct and interests of the family. She placed the paper on the table, challenging him. "It's him or your birth. Arthur, you can't have both." It was an ultimatum designed to force him back to reason, to the reality as they understood it. Arthur looked at the document, then at a photo of him and Leo on the beach, their expensive clothes soaked with salt water and happiness. The choice, which he feared would be agonizing, was the easiest he had ever made. He picked up a pen, but instead of signing anything, he wrote 2 words on a notepad: "I resign." He was voluntarily resigning from his position as CEO and relinquishing his inheritance. The silence in the room was thick. Eleanor stood stunned. Arthur then walked to the bookcase and picked up a small wooden horse, a simple toy that Leo loved. "This," he said, his voice calm but firm, "is the only inheritance that matters to me now." He chose love over the legacy of blood, proving that the courage just to follow one's heart is the greatest wealth of all. Abandoning his inheritance did not mean the end of his struggles. His family, feeling outraged, challenged his fitness to be Leo's legal guardian, citing his impulsive decision and lack of parenting experience in court documents. The case became public, and Arthur found himself fighting for custody of Leo in a Seattle court, his private life exposed for all to see. It was the most grueling battle of his life. Family lawyers painted him as an unstable eccentric, while he struggled to express the simple truth of their bond. The turning point came when the judge, an elderly woman with piercing eyes, asked to meet Leo. Instead of questioning, she simply observed Arthur and Leo interacting in a side room. She saw them conversing in sign language, sharing a silent joke. Leo's absolute trust in Arthur was palpable. The judge's decision was delivered with an eloquence that silenced the room. She spoke of the best interests of the child, not as an abstract concept, but as the presence of unconditional love and a safe home. She granted Arthur full custody, calling his journey one of the most genuine stories of transformation and redemption she had ever witnessed in her career. For Arthur, the ruling was not a victory over his family, but a monumental overcoming of all the obstacles that tried to separate him from his son. With custody secured, a strange peace settled over Arthur. The anger against his family, which had once been a constant fire in his chest, had turned into cold embers. He realized that harboring that resentment was like taking poison and expecting others to die. It was during a quiet afternoon in the garden, watching Leo play, that he finally understood the cycle of pain his own absent father must have lived through. He didn't justify his father's actions, but he began to see the man behind the family myth. A man trapped by his own expectations, as afraid of vulnerability as Arthur used to be. This understanding didn't erase the past, but it robbed him of its power to hurt him in the present. It was an act of liberation, not for his father, but for himself. A week later, Arthur wrote a letter to his sister, Eleanor. It wasn't a letter of forced reconciliation, but a simple statement of his boundaries and his new purpose. He ended with the sentence, "I refuse to pass on the legacy of coldness we received. The cycle ends with me." Sending that letter, he felt the weight of decades lift from his shoulders, making room for a lighter future. The story of Arthur and Leo, which was now making headlines in a positive way, reached the ears of a face from the past, Ben, his best friend from college in Boston, from whom he had drifted apart as he became obsessed with work. Ben appeared at his door, not as an admirer, but as a concerned friend. "I heard you've finally gone completely mad," Ben said with a familiar smile, before giving him a tight hug. This meeting opened doors to others. People Arthur had pushed away in his rise to the top now saw the genuine change in him and drew closer, offering support not out of self-interest, but out of loyalty. His home, once a symbol of isolation, became a place of warm gatherings. Leo, who was initially shy, flourished with the attention, learning to make new signs for friend and laughter. Arthur realized that these reconnections were possible because he was a different person now, more authentic, more open. He no longer needed to impress anyone. His transformation had acted like a magnet, drawing back into his life the souls that had always mattered, proving that the hope of new beginnings applies not only to families, but also to long-lost friendships. Arthur's life had settled into a completely new rhythm, a harmonious dance between responsibility and joy. He still managed his businesses, but from his home office, with the door always open for Leo to come in and show him a new drawing. Meetings in Tokyo were now held via video, and he inflexibly refused to work after 6 p.m. That was his and Leo's sacred park hour. He discovered a passion for cooking, a mundane activity that became a daily adventure. Leo, his official little helper, loved mixing ingredients and feeling the different textures. The kitchen, once a barren and unused territory, was now always filled with the smell of homemade bread and the joyful chaos of a family. It was the complete opposite of his previous life, and Arthur wouldn't trade it for anything. This new balance wasn't about finding time for everything, but about integrating everything that mattered into a coherent whole. His work fueled his foundation, which enriched his family, which gave purpose to his work. He had discovered that true overcoming isn't about beating others, but mastering the art of living a meaningful life, where success is measured in shared moments and silent smiles. The foundation was no longer just a sketch, but a vibrant reality christened Our Voice. Arthur acquired an abandoned warehouse in the heart of Seattle and transformed it into a bright and welcoming community center. The walls were painted in vibrant colors by local artists, and every detail, from the floors to the bathrooms, was designed to be fully accessible. It was a space where silence was not a disability, but a dialect. The inauguration was a moving event. Deaf children and their families filled the space, and the predominant sound wasn't voices, but the palpable energy of hope and connection. Arthur gave a speech, with Leo by his side, translating his words into American Sign Language with charming seriousness. Seeing Leo, once so isolated, now at the center of a community, was the final confirmation that he was on the right path. The foundation became Arthur's true legacy, far more significant than any corporate empire. It was a beacon of justice and compassion, living proof that a single twist of fate could generate waves of positive change. He wasn't just building a center. He was building a world where children like Leo would never again feel invisible. Within the stimulating environment of Our Voice, Leo flourished in a way that surprised even Arthur. A therapist discovered he had a natural talent for art, an ability to express complex emotions through paints and colors that his hands couldn't signal. He began creating vibrant, dynamic paintings, each telling a silent story. The breakthrough came when a local art gallery in Portland organized a special exhibition for deaf artists. The centerpiece was a painting by Leo, a bold self-portrait where he saw himself holding hands with Arthur, with waves of color emanating from their connected bodies, representing the music and love they felt. The caption, written by Arthur, read, "Our language." Seeing his own experience portrayed with such beauty and insight touched Arthur deeply. It was no longer him saving Leo. It was a partnership, a mutual journey of transformation. Leo's art was not just an achievement, it was a declaration of existence, proof that his overcoming and resilience inspired everyone around him. The story of Arthur and Leo, and the success of the Our Voice Foundation, began to attract national attention. A major daytime TV program invited them for an interview in New York. On air, Arthur spoke not as a tycoon, but as a father. He talked about his loneliness, his meeting with Leo, and the redemption he found in unconditional love. When the presenter turned to Leo and asked, through an interpreter, what he loved most about Arthur, Leo didn't hesitate. His fingers formed the signs with a clarity that reached millions of homes. "My father makes me feel safe. He listens to me." At that moment, there wasn't a dry soul in the studio. It was poetic justice in its purest form. This recognition didn't inflate Arthur's ego. On the contrary, it grounded him even more. He realized that his story was bigger than himself. He became a symbol of hope for parents and children in similar situations. His new purpose crystallized: to use his platform to advocate for broader inclusion policies and to show that compassion can in fact change the world, one child, one family at a time. Despite their deep bond, real life brought its share of friction. One day, after a particularly stressful meeting, Arthur was distant. Leo, eager to show off a new painting, tugged at his sleeve repeatedly. In his frustration, Arthur turned and spoke sharply. "Leo, not now." He instantly regretted it, but the word had come out, inaudible, though the harsh expression on his face was universal. Leo's gaze wasn't one of anger, but of deep hurt. His shoulders slumped and he retreated to his room, closing the door silently. The mansion, which had become such a vibrant home, suddenly grew cold and silent again. Arthur felt the old guilt and fear of having ruined everything return in full force. He waited a few minutes, his heart heavy, before gently knocking on the door. He entered and found Leo curled up in bed. Arthur sat beside him and, instead of apologizing, his hands formed a slow, sincere, "I'm sorry," followed by, "I'm tired, not angry with you." It was the first time their love had been tested by routine, and he had learned that forgiveness too was a language that needed to be practiced. Arthur decided it was time for Leo to experience the world beyond the mansion and the foundation. They went to a bustling amusement park in Orlando. It was a sensory overload for Leo. The flashing lights, the vibrations of the roller coasters, the crowd. At one point, he lost sight of Arthur. The panic that gripped Arthur was primal, an amplified version of the fear he felt in the hospital. He ran through the crowd, his eyes frantically searching. When he finally spotted Leo, standing motionless near a carousel, his face was pale with fear. Arthur knelt down and hugged him, feeling the little heart pounding against his own. He realized that his role wasn't to create a bubble, but to equip Leo with the tools to navigate the world, however noisy and frightening it might be. From that day on, they began practicing safety games, signals for "I'm lost" and "I need help." Arthur taught Leo to look for a mother with children or a park employee. It was a solemn reminder that their journey wasn't just about creating joy, but also about building courage and resilience in the boy, preparing him for the challenges that life would inevitably bring. While organizing the attic, Arthur found a dusty box containing photos from his own childhood. There were pictures of him, a serious boy in expensive clothes, next to an equally serious father. Instead of the usual pain, he felt a pang of compassion. He showed the photos to Leo and gestured, "This is my father." He didn't know how to be happy. By giving voice to this truth for Leo, he finally accepted it for himself. He was no longer the emotionally abandoned boy, nor the lonely tycoon. He was simply Arthur, Leo's father. The past no longer had power over him. It had become a lesson, not a chain. He closed the box with a sense of peace, knowing he was breaking the cycle for the next generation. That night, he and Leo sat on the terrace, gazing at the stars over Los Angeles. Arthur pointed to the sky and then to the two of them, signaling our future. Leo smiled and signaled back, bright. In that moment of quiet understanding, Arthur knew that every difficult choice, Every moment of overcoming had been worth it. Destiny wasn't a sentence, but a story they were writing together, and the next chapters were filled with infinite hope. The Our Voice Foundation organized its first major fundraising event, a silent concert where the music was felt through vibrating floors and lights that danced to the rhythm. Arthur, used to speaking to CEOs, was nervous. He stumbled over his words during his opening speech, and his sign for thank you came out a little crooked. A child in the audience, without malice, laughed and corrected his sign with his own little fingers. Instead of embarrassment, Arthur laughed along, a genuine, free laugh that echoed in the hall. He made a comical face at the child and tried again, receiving an enthusiastic thumbs up in return. At that moment, he wasn't the tycoon or the philanthropist. He was just a student, learning from the wisest masters. The humility of being taught by those he sought to help was a more valuable lesson than any praise. That night proved that true connection doesn't come from perfection, but from authenticity. By allowing himself to be vulnerable and learn in public, Arthur broke down the last barrier between himself and the community. He showed that transformation is an ongoing process, and that sometimes the courage to look foolish is the greatest act of leadership. An article in a prestigious business newspaper publicly questioned Arthur's motivations. The text, written by a cynical critic, suggested that his entire journey of redemption was nothing more than an elaborate marketing campaign to revitalize his personal brand after his turbulent departure from the family business. The headline was cruel. The Tycoon and the Child, a love story or a business story? The words of the article pierced him like poison. On a rainy night, staring at the ceiling, Arthur's old insecurities whispered that perhaps the critic was right. Perhaps he was merely deceiving himself, using Leo as a prop for a convenient narrative. It was the darkest temptation from the start, to doubt the purity of his own heart. He went to Leo's room and watched the boy sleep, his face illuminated by the moon-shaped lamp. Leo held the small wooden horse that Arthur had given him. On the bedside table was the drawing of our bright future. The truth, tangible and pure in that silent room, dispelled the darkness of empty words. The inner justice he had built was stronger than any external doubt. Instead of ignoring the article, Arthur confronted it with brutal honesty. He was invited to the same business program that had criticized him. Sitting before the same skeptical interviewer, he didn't use data or numbers. He simply told the story of the night in the hospital, of the promise whispered beside Leo's bed. He spoke about the fear, the pain, and the messy, imperfect journey of love. "If this is marketing," he said, his voice firm but heavy with emotion, "then I feel sorry for all of us. Because what I feel isn't a campaign. It's an everyday miracle. It's waking up and knowing that my purpose is to make the world a little bit safer and happier for my son." He wasn't defending himself. He was stating his truth undeniably. The response was overwhelming. The interviewer himself, visibly moved, reached out and apologized. The episode became one of the most watched on the show. Arthur had understood that the only response to cynicism is not anger, but unwavering vulnerability. His courage in exposing himself in this way not only silenced the critics, but further deepened the respect and admiration people felt for his transformation. Arthur decided it was time for an adventure, just him and Leo. He rented a motorhome and charted a course along historic Route 66, far from the spotlight of big cities. The first day was chaotic. Arthur burned dinner, and a sandstorm in Arizona forced them to stop on the side of the road. Inside the rocking motorhome, instead of fear, they had a pillow fight, laughing silently until their stomachs hurt. It was in the simplicity of life on the road that Arthur found the purest joy. They stopped at eccentric tourist spots, ate poorly made sandwiches, and communicated through creative signs and gestures in the middle of nowhere. Leo, far from any therapy or formal structure, flourished in a new way, his boundless curiosity being the only guide they needed. One night, camping at the Grand Canyon, they sat around a campfire. Arthur pointed to the starry sky, endless and silent. Leo rested his head on Arthur's shoulder, and together they simply felt the immensity. In that shared silence, Arthur understood that this was true wealth, the freedom to explore the world with the one you love, creating a bond that neither time nor distance could break. In a small town in New Mexico, fate played a trick on him. While buying supplies, Arthur recognized a solitary figure sitting on a park bench. It was his former driver, an elderly man named Joseph, who had been fired years before for a trivial mistake. Joseph looked tired and somewhat lost. Arthur's old resentment initially resurfaced, but then he felt Leo's hand tugging at his. Arthur took a deep breath and walked over to Joseph. He introduced himself, not as a former boss, but simply as Arthur. Joseph, with surprised eyes, explained that he had fallen on hard times after losing his job. Instead of indifference, Arthur felt a pang of guilt. He offered Joseph not his old job, but a fresh start, a janitor position at the Our Voice Foundation, where his experience would be valued. Accepting that offer was a redemption for both of them. For Joseph, it was a second chance. For Arthur, it was an opportunity to correct a past mistake, to practice the compassion he now preached. It was a powerful reminder that transformation is not linear and that true change requires confronting the ghosts of who you used to be. The journey was drawing to a close. On the way home, with the motorhome filled with souvenirs and seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, Arthur reflected on everything he had learned. He realized that the road was a perfect metaphor for his life with Leo, full of unexpected turns, unpleasant stops, but also breathtaking landscapes and a profound sense of being exactly where he was meant to be. He had learned to navigate disagreements in confined spaces, to celebrate small victories like finding a great food truck, and to trust his instincts, not the GPS, both on the road and in fatherhood. The journey had shaped them, teaching them both the courage to venture into the unknown, knowing they had each other. As they caught sight of the Los Angeles suburbs, Arthur didn't feel the tightness in his chest he'd felt before. He looked at Leo, who was asleep in the passenger seat, and knew that no matter where they were home. The journey had solidified what he'd always suspected, that love isn't a destination, but the journey itself, and every mile traveled together was a miracle to be celebrated. The motorhome stopped in front of the gates of the Beverly Hills mansion, but something fundamental had changed within Arthur. The house was no longer a gilded cage, but a safe haven, a place to return to and share the stories of his adventures. The silent hallways now seemed eager to be filled with the new memories they carried with them. Leo ran inside, excited to show his travel treasures: a shiny stone, an eagle feather, a refrigerator magnet from a ghost town, to his nanny and the house staff. Arthur watched, realizing that the house came alive not with valuable objects, but with the insignificant fragments of a life well lived. The transformation wasn't just in them, but in the very space they inhabited. That night, in his own bed, Arthur closed his eyes and no longer saw the image of the empty man in the mirror. He saw the face of a father, an explorer, a fellow traveler. The journey had washed away the last ashes of his old self. He was, finally and completely, at home in his own skin, a feeling that was the very essence of hope fulfilled. Inspired by the trip, Arthur made a bold decision about Leo's education. Instead of trying to fit into another rigid system, he created a personalized school of life. He hired tutors specializing in deaf education, but the curriculum was based on his own experiences. They studied geography by tracing their route on Route 66, biology by identifying the flora of the Grand Canyon, and history by learning about the native peoples of New Mexico. Leo, who had previously retreated into formal school environments, flourished in this personalized method. His curiosity was the driving force, and the world was his classroom. Arthur participated in the classes whenever he could, learning alongside his son. They conducted scientific experiments in the kitchen and practiced math by calculating the budget for their next mini-adventure. It was an education based on understanding, not memorization. Arthur watched Leo's confidence grow each day. He realized that his mission was not to prepare Leo for the world, but to give Leo the tools to shape his own place in it. This unique educational journey was a testament to his love and commitment to his son's unique future. One day, during one of his lessons at the foundation, Leo asked Arthur a profound question through sign language. "Dad, when I grow up, can I do this for other children too?" The simple question, born from Leo's pure empathy, touched Arthur more deeply than any headline or philanthropy award. It was the seed of a legacy germinating in the next generation. Arthur knelt down, his eyes welling with tears. He motioned back. "You're already doing it." He explained that Leo's courage in being who he was, his joy, and his art already inspired countless people. The foundation wasn't just Arthur's legacy, it was the starting point of Leo's legacy. It was a promise for the future that would extend far beyond the life of a single man. At that moment, Arthur understood the complete cycle of redemption. He had been saved by Leo, and now he witnessed his son wanting to extend that salvation to others. There was no greater miracle than this. The legacy wasn't about an empire or a fortune, but about the compassion that multiplies, passing from father to son in an infinite cycle of hope. Mornings at the mansion had become a sacred ritual. Arthur, standing before the same gold-plated mirror that once reflected his loneliness, now found himself surrounded. Leo enthusiastically brushed his teeth in the next bathroom, making funny faces at his reflection. The muffled sound of running water and quick footsteps down the hallway were the soundtrack to his new life. He no longer searched for traces of the empty man. Now, he adjusted his tie while watching, in the reflection, Leo trying to tie his shoelaces alone, his tongue hanging out in concentration. A tranquil smile crossed Arthur's face. The image in the mirror was complete, filled not with possessions, but with presence. It was the most visible transformation. The same man, a completely different inner world. That daily scene was her most powerful reminder. All the wealth in the world paled in comparison to the privilege of witnessing a child grow, of being the person with whom she felt safe enough to make faces. The mirror, once her accuser, was now her most faithful witness to redemption. One Saturday afternoon, Arthur canceled a last-minute meeting with a foreign investor. Instead, he and Leo went to an ordinary public park with rusty chain swings and a dusty baseball field. Arthur pushed Leo on the swing, higher and higher, until the boy's feet seemed to touch the clouds. His face lit up with a silent ecstasy. So, sitting on the grass, they shared a simple picnic of cheese sandwiches and apple juice. Leo showed Arthur how to make soap bubbles with his hands, his palms forming a perfect cup for an iridescent, fragile sphere. Arthur laughed, a genuine, carefree laugh that came from a place he didn't even know existed. The happiness was as tangible as the warm breeze on his face. At that moment, he wasn't a former tycoon or a philanthropist. He was just a father in a park. He realized that true wealth wasn't in bank statements, but in the lightness of a heart without burdens, the sweetness of a shared apple juice, and the fleeting beauty of a soap bubble caught in midair. It was the simplicity he had always sought, but could only find through love. Arthur's life had become a rich tapestry of relationships. Ben, his old friend, was now a constant presence, bringing the joyful chaos of his own children into the mansion. Joseph, the former chauffeur, tended the garden with proud zeal and always had a treat hidden for Leo. The therapist Clara had become a beloved advisor. The house was always full of life, of real people. It was a support network built not out of self-interest, but out of loyalty and genuine affection. Arthur watched Leo interact with each person, learning different lessons from each. Patience with Joseph, mischief with Ben's children, and kindness with Clara. He was no longer raising Leo alone. He was raising him within a village full of love, a stark contrast to his own isolated childhood. This web was his greatest achievement. It proved that brief compassion is contagious. By opening his heart to Leo, he unwittingly opened doors to all these other wonderful connections. His journey of solitude had, paradoxically, led him to an incredibly rich life in community, showing that love, when freely given, returns multiplied. Arthur and Leo's story had become public, but not as a scandal or a passing curiosity. It had established itself as a modern tale of redemption and love. When they went to a cafe in Santa Monica or to a movie theater, people no longer whispered or pointed. Instead, they offered smiles of recognition. Sometimes a deaf person or a parent of a child with a disability would approach and silently signal thank you to Arthur. This new normal was proof of the power of authenticity. Arthur no longer needed to pretend to be someone he wasn't. He was simply Leo's father. The acceptance from the outside world mirrored the peace he had found within himself. The fight for justice and understanding had borne fruit, creating a space where his unusual family was not only tolerated, but celebrated. Leo, who once hid behind Arthur's legs, now waved to people with serene confidence. He had grown up in this environment of acceptance, internalizing it as his reality. For Arthur, seeing this confidence in his son was the greatest victory over prejudice they could have achieved. It was the transformation of the world around them, a reflection of what had happened within their own hearts. Arthur had always believed he was the teacher, the protector, the guide. But one day, during an event at the foundation, he witnessed Leo comforting a new child who was crying, frightened by the new environment. Leo, without hesitation, sat beside her and began making the same faces he made for Arthur in the mirror. In seconds, the girl was laughing through her tears. At that moment, Arthur had an epiphany. He realized that the greatest lesson wasn't what he taught Leo, but what Leo unconsciously taught him. Leo taught him courage by facing a silent world with a smile. He taught him resilience by getting up after every fall. He taught him pure compassion without judgment. And above all, he taught him that the deepest love needs no words. He now saw that his journey wasn't about saving a child. It was about two incomplete souls who found each other and became whole together. Leo wasn't his salvation project. He was his master, his guiding light, the miracle that rekindled his humanity. The gratitude Arthur felt was an ocean, and he sailed on it every day. Sitting at his desk, Arthur wasn't analyzing financial reports, but sketching out plans for expanding our voice to other cities. He imagined Leo, now an adult, perhaps taking the lead in the foundation, using his own unique experience to guide other children. He envisioned a future where inclusion wasn't a struggle, but the norm, and his story was just one of many that inspired this change. This vision wasn't a distant dream, but an inevitable destiny they were building together, one day at a time. He no longer worried about what Leo would be. He saw the strength, kindness, and emotional intelligence that already resided within the boy and knew that, regardless of the path he chose, Leo would illuminate the world in his own way. Looking to the future no longer caused Arthur anxiety, but rather a serene anticipation. He and Leo had planted seeds of love and hope that would flourish for generations. Their legacy was not one of power or wealth, but of a love so transformative that its echo would continue long after them, a silent testament to the miracle of a second chance. Years passed, and the Beverly Hills mansion witnessed the most beautiful of transformations. Leo, now a young teenager, held the hand of a small, frightened child who had just arrived at the Our Voice Foundation. He knelt, and his hands, once so small and hesitant, formed the first welcoming gestures with quiet confidence. He was the mirror of Arthur himself, returning to the world the hope that had once been given to him. Arthur watched from afar, his heart overflowing with an emotion so profound it ached. He didn't see an orphan being saved, but a new cycle of compassion beginning. Leo, unknowingly, was passing on the same unconditional love that had rescued him, proving that true redemption is a circle, not a final destination. The journey that began with an act of acceptance in a storm now blossomed into others, multiplying infinitely. At that moment, Arthur understood the deeper meaning of his destiny. All the pain, the loneliness, and the struggle had not been in vain. They were the necessary prelude to this perfect scene. His son, his miracle, becoming the miracle of another child. The boy who could neither hear nor speak was teaching the world the most eloquent of lessons, that love is the only language that truly matters, and that a single twist of fate can restore faith in humanity forever. And so, dear viewer, the story of Arthur and Leo comes to an end, but your own journey is only beginning. Look around you. How many opportunities for genuine connection have you let pass by in exchange for an empty race for success? How many Leos are there in the world? Not necessarily children, but pieces of humanity in need of a gesture of compassion, waiting for someone with the courage to reach out. Arthur's transformation didn't begin with a grand gesture, but with the decision to open a gate on a rainy night. What gate do you need to open today? A difficult conversation you're avoiding, a forgiveness you refuse to give, a fear of becoming vulnerable that paralyzes you. Their story proves that redemption is always within reach, but it requires us to relinquish control and let love guide us. This isn't just a story about a millionaire and an orphan. It's a mirror. What do you see reflected in it? The promise is this: each of us carries the power to create a miracle in someone else's life. The invitation is made. Life change begins with a single choice. And if this story touched your heart, imagine how many others are waiting to be discovered. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's continue this journey together. Because the world needs more stories that restore faith, and yours could be the next one.